Yeah,
Sige po.
Ed,
Let's
we're
hear.
already live. Okay. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Ako po si Ariel C. Sabellino, Executive Director and Trustee of the Philippine Press Institute, also known as the National Association of Newspapers. We welcome everyone, special panelists, to the 11th month of the Roundtable. Since pandemic, we've been doing a lot of activities supported by Seidel Foundation, and you'll get to know later about what's Seidel Foundation all about. Pang ilang months na into the second year of the pandemic, we've done more than 60 online activities. As they said, the most by media organizations. But we're so happy that we are being supported by Seidel Foundation and also supported by our audiences across the Philippines. And shout out to those who are watching us live on Facebook and those in the meeting. Maraming salamat po for taking heed of our invitation, not only to participate and to cover this event. We thought that on the 11th month of this roundtable, we are at the crossroads of a lot of things in the middle of, as they said, circus, election fever, etc. But we think that our discussions today will have to do a lot to do with how the audiences will take part in a very crucial or critical responsibility or duty that they have the next year. So this early, we've been doing a lot of discussions so that our voters out there, especially our voters out there, will be more enlightened and will be more educated, as they said. Ayon, we welcome again our moderator kasi for the benefit of those who have not attended the previous roundtables, it used to be, I always say this because as tribute to Sir Melo Acuña, di ba? Kilala niyo po siya, no? Veteran journalist, seasoned journalist, na mayapa na po. So we thought that we are going to have 3 moderators taking turns monthly for this roundtable discussion. This time, balik uli kay Ed. Nauna si Ed, tapos si Manny Mogato, of course you know him as well, and then Joyce Pañares, also our Seminar Director sa PPI, and now back to Ed Lingao, our moderator today. But before that, please listen to the message and words of wisdom from our friend from Seidel Foundation. He is the resident representative of Seidel Foundation to the Philippines. Please welcome Attorney Guts Heineke.
Thank you very much, Ariel. Good morning to all of you. Just a few words, as you mentioned, Seidel Foundation. Yes. First of all, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for watching this roundtable discussion this morning. The Seidel Foundation is a German NGO. We are in the Philippines for 42 years now, and it's our goal to promote democracy, good governance, civic education worldwide. Civic education, good governance, therefore you need to inform the population, and for informing the population, journalists are a key player, have got an essential role, and that's already a little bit the background why we are working together with the Philippine Press Institute for more than 2 years now, and we are quite proud and happy. And it turned out during the pandemic that the PPI is really our most active and most important partner. Ariel has mentioned we had 62 online activities so far. I'm really hoping that next year we can switch back to face-to-face activity, maybe even a few, but we will see. We will discuss our planning tomorrow. About the election circus, honestly, I'm a German. I'm here in the Philippines for 5 years. I was watching you call it circus for the last few weeks. I don't understand anything, honestly.
Neither do we. It's okay. And we will do our lives.
Please don't ask me for any comment. I turn on the TV every morning. I watch the news, and then I'm deeply impressed. So I'm excited for the next few months, and I'm still wondering what will come the next few months. And so I'm excited already for your discussion this morning, and I'm pretty sure I will learn a lot this morning. Thank you very much for this roundtable, and let's start it. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Gus. Hindi ko alam kung saan siya na-impress. Sa circus ba or sa news. Pero just the same, di rin niya maintindihan. Pero, speaking of pag-iintindi, ito po yung purpose ng roundtable natin para mapaintindi sa lahat ng sektor, hindi lang sa media na nagko-cover, nagpa-participate. And shout out to our media friends as far as Tugegaraw, suki po natin sila members ng PTI. Pagpapaintindi sa publiko, most specifically and very importantly, about itong mga nangyayari sa ating bansa at sa mga susunod na tatahakin natin. Please welcome multi-awarded and multi-platform journalist Ed Lingao. Good morning sa iyo.
Ka naman ganyan. Call me a journalist, that's it.
Siyempre, pag sabi nga, sino ba nagsabi ng isang roundtable namin, maganda umpisahan daw sa umaga yung pambobola. Pambobola na totoo, di ba? Di ba?
Okay.
Okay, Ed, take the floor. It's yours.
Okay, good morning to everybody. We are so happy and we are honored to have our esteemed guest this morning who took the time off to join us. Si Earl is even in transit pero pumayag si Earl.
Yeah.
Ikaw yun, Ed.
How do I do this? According to age mo or according to ano? Okay, let's start with the one who retired first. No offense to Com Louis. But si Commissioner Louis Guia retired from the Commission on Elections. He's even before he joined the COMELEC, he was always one of our favorite resource persons, especially with the seminars for journalists and editors with regard to election issues. And we bring him again today with us, Commissioner Louis Guia of the Commission on Elections, retired of course, joins us. Good morning, Com Louis.
Good morning, Ed. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. And of course, you have Dr. Jean Encinas Franco of the UP Political Science Department, who also joins us. We've had a lot of engagement with her in other talk shows as well. And I figured, why not bring her in again? Kasi maraming kakwento yan, lalo tungkol at may relate pa niya sa mga Korean novela. And of course, we have Earl Pareño, a long-time colleague, way back sa Manila Times pa.
And matanda na tayo.
Matanda na. And more recently, si Earl wrote the unauthorized biography of President Rodrigo Duterte, of course, former mayor of Davao City, Beyond Will and Power. Actually, magandang reference point siya for a lot of things that are happening right now.
Agreed.
You can look back, read back, and see, uy, ganito pala dati, at kaya pala ganun ngayon. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of points that you can connect now because of what Earl wrote before. Was it 2 years ago? 2 years ago na, di ba?
When you wrote 2019. Yeah, 2019.
Yeah. So we're happy to have you all three with us. If you don't mind, I have a short presentation so that we can all begin on the same page, especially for our viewers. Kasi we of course, the topic is about substitutions. Substitutions, that mysterious concept that became so popular in 2015 for the 2016 elections, that we thought would only happen once, but no, it happened again in several multiples this year. Actually, over the weekend. So I'll start off with a very brief presentation on substitutions. Okay, let me bring it in. Just so we're on the same page. Okay, do you guys see this?
Yes.
There, okay.
Yes, yeah.
Substitutions in Philippine elections. Don't worry, this will be quick. Just so we're all on the same page for the viewers. Okay, allowed by Batas Pambansa 881 or the Omnibus Election Code. I got this from Sir Louis from long ago. Under the OEC, substitutions are allowed in cases of death, withdrawal, or disqualification of the original candidate. The substitute, according to the OEC, Omnibus Election Code, may file his certificate of candidacy for the office affected in accordance with the preceding sections, not later than the midday of the day of the election. So as far as the OEC was concerned, ang deadline ng tatlong yan, death, withdrawal, or disqualification, was until election day midday. And then under the Fair Election 2001, RA 9006, if substitution is done after the printing of the ballots, substitute must have the same surname. And then further on, in 2009, the COMELEC Resolution 8678, deadline for filing of COCs for substitutes of withdrawals was moved to December of that year, and it was upheld by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled that withdrawals are voluntary and that the candidate had sufficient time to ponder his candidacy before the printing of the ballots. So doon inurong ng COMELEC yung substitution for withdrawals to an earlier date, no longer yung midday of election day. So in effect, we have two kinds of substitutions. One is voluntary, ibig sabihin by withdrawal, and that's what we saw over the weekend. The second one is involuntary or through death or disqualification. Under voluntary substitutions, COMELEC has authority to fix early dates for substitutions as upheld by the Supreme Court. Does not include independent candidates, only for those with political parties. And substitutes have to belong to the same political party. The substitute can join the party just before substituting. Unfortunately, it's a loophole in the law. There is no requirement that a candidate had to be a member of the party for a certain period before he can substitute. So pwedeng last minute, the day before, like we saw on the weekend, the day before the substitution deadline, pwedeng maglipatan. And that candidates have the inherent right to change their minds. For involuntary substitutions, for those who died or were disqualified, substitution may be done until the midday of election day, May 9 in the case of 2022. They must have the same surname and they do not have to be related by blood. Ibig sabihin, a complete stranger can substitute so long as he is endorsed by the party, a member of the party, and has the same surname as the one he's substituting for. And we saw this in 2015 for the 2016 elections, used by Rodrigo Duterte and Martin Dino for the PDP Laban. And people said the same trick can't be and won't be used again. Kasi parang nagamit na. Paso na siya. You can't fool us twice, parang ganon. Yun nga lang, over the weekend, tantantinin, Baste subs for Sara as Davao Mayor, Sara subs for Laili Uy of Lakas for VP, Bongo subs for the President under the PDDS, Grepor Belica withdraws under the PDDS, Bato de Rosa withdraws under the PDP Laban, Duterte threatens to sub for VP under the PDDS, Duterte subs for Senator under the PDDS, Parlade subs for President under the KDP, and Roque subs for Senator under the PRP, and Eleazar subs for Senator under Reforma. So, kung sa basketball, yung buong team napalitan na. And we haven't even, and the campaign period is still 3 months away. So there, started campaign period, national post February 8, local post March 25, 2022, 3 months away before we begin the campaign. So among other things, among many other things, we want to talk about these particular things. What happened exactly on Substitution Day this weekend? Well, not just on Monday, but also the weekend. The wheelings and the dealings and the inside track. What do we know? What should we know? And the apparent family feud within the Duterte, the internal family feud. Is it real? Is it contrived? What do we know of the past? As well, lumilitaw yung possible kiskisan between the Dutertes and the Marcoses, at least between the patriarch and the Marcoses, again referring back to Earl's book, the possible scenarios and the options in 2022. And of course, moving forward, should substitutions be better regulated? What can we do about the law? If there is anything we can do about the law or the COMELEC resolutions with regard to substitutions so that it is not abused. So I suppose we're headed in that direction. That in brief, that's my presentation. If you don't mind, Arlo, I'll go dive down into our discussion this morning. I took out sharing. Are we back?
Yeah, you're back. You're on screen already.
Okay. Well, of course, we had a very confusing and discombobulating weekend. I hope you guys enjoy the weekend because it looks like we're in for more. Let's start off with the inside stories. What do we know and what don't we know? What should we know about what exactly is happening within the Duterte camp? now, of course, you're looking at two specific sides of the Duterte camp, no longer one. I know we've heard about this before na may fissures or fractures within the Duterte camp between father and daughter, but most of this has been has been confined to whispers and mga parinig. I'd like to bring in Earl first kasi I know Earl has to go in a while because he has to catch a flight later on. But can I bring in Earl first? And Earl, can you tell us what we know and how the past appears to be coloring where we're headed? What do we know about the Dutertes and their apparent feud?
After the crazy weekend, parang wala nang nakakaalam ano bang mangyayari, no? Talagang it was very crazy. Pero to answer your question, Ed, sa tingin ko real talaga yung family feud. So between Sarah and her father, medyo tumindi ang feud. Dahil sa naririnig ko nga, gusto ni Sarah talaga na tumakbo si President Duterte for mayor. Pero ayaw ni Digong. Akala ko that time set na. So parang yung pag-resign niya, pag-withdraw niya ng mayoralty candidate niya, yun yung parang nakita ng mga supporters niya na wala nang pag-asang mag-mayor si Digong. I thought then, dahil sabi niya, yung pag-withdraw ni Sara, pupunta si Baste dahil Baste really does not want to join politics, no? Napipilitan lang siya. Pero yun nga yung danger. Ang feud ng family parang may impact ito sa Davao City itself, no? Yung turf nila, pagdi-defend ng turf nila dahil sabi nila may pera naman, kaya naman maniobrahin yon na mananalo si Baste. Pero I doubt it, no? Medyo hindi siguradong mananalo si Baste. Pero maliban dyan sa feud ng family, may feud din talaga ang mga close supporters ng mga Dutertes. Some of them, many of them, don't like Sara. No? Kaya talagang pinupush nila yung Bongo Sara. No? Or Bongo Duterte. Who Duterte, pwede yung presidente, pwede rin si Sara. Pero parang nag-compromise sila na sige, Sara, Bongo, ayaw pa rin ni Sara. No? Parang, so dalawang level ng feuds. The family feud at saka yung feud among the Dutertes. Pero sa tingin ko, itong nangyari last week and hindi lang ito reflection ng feud ng family at ng mga close reporters. It also highlights what's wrong with our political party system. Very, very wrong because our political party system actually is based on personalities. Kaya walang devoid of any program, of any ideology ang mga political parties. So it's very easy for candidates, no, for politicians to shift from one party to another. So parang ano lang, laro lang sa kanila ito, no? It's a game of parang Game of Thrones, yeah, parang basketball. Sub. Dahil wala naman kasi silang loyalty to any team or to any ideology. So that's very wrong. Kaya sa tingin ko yun dapat ang i-address. Hindi lang ang usapin ng substitution as embodied sa various tasks sa laws natin, but we need to overhaul the political party system or else mangyayari ito palagi. And it reflects also government. No, what's wrong with government? I think there are three basic problems talaga ng government. It's not just corruption. It also includes incompetence and the insensitivity of our political leaders and needs and aspirations of our people. The more na talagang bumababa tayo dahil yung political party system natin, ang pagpili ng mga leaders natin ay may mali na. At nagre-reinforce ito sa what's wrong with our government. Nagre-reinforce ito sa corrupt practices, sa pagpili ng mga incompetent people to man our governmental agencies, no? And yung insensitivity mismo ng mga leaders natin sa needs ng mga tao. I think that's it, Ed.
Naku, ang aga pa lang, nagalit na si Earl.
Wala pa kasi akong breakfast, ang tagal mag-serve.
Earl, cool ka lang dyan. But let me swing it this way naman. Okay, I suppose a lot of people, including us, were really surprised that Sara opted to run for VP. I mean, all this time we thought that all these pronouncements, all these parinig, all these paramdams, mga Sara all and all that were in the direction of the presidency.
Right.
Until Saturday, and even the president himself was surprised.
Right.
So what could have happened there? What have you heard so far?
Sa tingin ko miscommunication dahil up to the very last minute nung nag-uusap tayo sa isang
Kasama tayo ni Doc Jean.
show na ni Jean, di ba? Kasama tayo ni Jean. Ang naririnig ko talaga, bahala na si Bongbong. Basta si Sara ay tatakbo. Sa mga closest leaders niya ito, closest reporters. No? Bago ako pumasok sa show, may nag-text pa sa akin no? Na si Sara na talaga. Tapos i-open niya yung vice. And yet, the next day, yun yung nangyari. Surprise lahat. At maraming, actually hindi lang naman si Bongo ang umiyak Pati yung mga supporters ni Sara na talagang nag-wish tatakbo siyang presidente ay umiyak din. Ewan ko kung nakaget over na yung mga tao na yon. Hindi nila alam ngayon paano magpo-position. Pero tingnan natin sa next few days paano pa sila magpo-position sa ganong decision ni Sara.
Yeah, Earl, I hope you don't mind. I'll push it further. When you say miscommunication, what do you mean by that? And what could have happened? I mean, if she appeared to be aiming so high, why did she sell for number 2?
Sa tingin ko kasi ang opportunity ng pagiging presidente, it only comes once in your lifetime. Both Bongbong and Sara ay may opportunity now to be the country's top leader. Kung ifo-forgo ng isa, maski vice, mananalo si Sara sa vice, hindi automatic na magiging presidente siya.
Yeah.
So i-squander niya yung opportunity. At maraming naniniwala sa kampo nila na si Sara ay pwedeng manalo over Bongbong. So parang nasasayangan sila. Miscommunication dahil hindi talaga ganon sila mag-usap ng mag-ama. Walang formal na pag-uusap. Sa namomonitor ko once or twice lang. Hindi nag-uusap actually. Pinipilit lang sila ni Elizabeth na umupo. And it happened once or twice sa namomonitor ko. Pero wala talagang yung parang nagpla-planning kayo, nag-brainstorm kayo, anong gagawin. Yung parang brief, hi, hello, o anong gagawin natin, ito yung gusto ko, hindi, ganito, tapos wala na. They never agree on certain points. Hahayaan nilang mangyari ang anumang mga actions ng dalawang kampo, no? Then they adapt. Ganon yung nangyayari sa tingin ko. Walang clear communications ang mag-ama.
Okay. Doc Jean Franco, let me bring you in too. Doc Jean, well, I suppose you were among us na nagulat at nawindang nung weekend. I suppose si Kam Louie din nagulat But how do you see the events of the weekend? I mean, was it completely unexpected, or was there room for that kind of a sudden turnaround?
Well, of course, we all knew that Sara was running for a national post, but the filing of her filing of vice presidential candidacy, was a bit of a surprise. But then, it all boils down, I think, to what Earl said, no, that political families are the best unit of analysis when you want to understand Philippine politics. No, if you were from another planet and you would take a look at Philippine politics, it would be to your loss if you immediately look for political parties. Because in other countries, they do have a lot of divisions. Their politics is also a bit messy, but even in countries where there are populists, it's still within political parties, and
Yeah.
if they do have divisions, they have divisions within the party. That's why their politics are fairly predictable, and also not too messy as it is in the Philippines. I have never seen anything like this before. No, the past developments. No, over the past few days, and I think politicians can do it mainly because they know they will not be punished by the
Mhm.
electorate who actually does not value party loyalty. Party is meaningless for them, no? As Earl said, it's really based on personalities, no? I actually, to this day, I mean, like the summary of Ed, and you know, I think the rules privilege the political party so much. Like, for instance, the political party has the right to change their minds. I mean, I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. My sense is that every rule that every electoral rule that we should promulgate should be towards building our democratic system, building, strengthening, and consolidating our democratic system. It has to be part of a uh, bigger picture, and not because it's and I think the right of the electorate, the future of our democracy is more important than the right of political parties to change their minds. Can you imagine, party residency is not even required
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
will substitute? So it's just it is just absurd. So it sort of the the entire setup that Ed summarized tells us that you know um, the rules were just waiting for these crazy developments over the past few days
Confluence of
to
events.
happen. Yeah, and I think aside from the family feud that we saw, I think the other thing that we're seeing is that the feud, the family picture that we're seeing is that they want to run for electoral. They want Sara to run for a national post, but they also want Davao. And Duterte is aging. So they're trying to forge a future for the Dutertes. The family is trying to forge a future for the Dutertes. It's just that there's only one who they think is qualified and who is willing. No, the other sons are not too willing to take on, as Earl said. So it's really just that scenario. That's why that scenario also happened. And it's also a bit interesting to point out that I realized that Duterte, who ran under the framing, or who portrayed himself as macho, who is a action-oriented guy, could not even control his family, no, and his political party, the PDP. So it's sort of parang it unraveled over the past few days, no. So yeah, and at the end of the day, it's only Bongo who is really, the loyal aide, no. So yeah, the relationship is so dramatic and interesting that you would really be very much watchful of how this will turn out along the way. Yeah, thank you.
Doctin, let me ask you this. Kasi, well, I do remember the last time we guested you and Earl, magkasama pa nga kayo.
Hmm.
You were so upset. Actually, we were all upset. We were also upset with how substitution is being used and apparently misused. But let me ask you this. Tayo lang ba yun? Does it matter to voters? do voters care whether candidates play around with the substitution rules, and would it matter to them on election day? O baka mamaya tayo lang na-offend, tayo lang na-upset, tayo lang na naiinis.
No, I don't think so. As I said, it's just they know that they're not going to be punished by the larger number of the electorate, and because if you think at the history of how we vote candidates, it's really, I mean, once again, the rules are there to promote personality-oriented politics. Remember before we used to write the entire name?
Yeah.
No? So that's
Gusto
why
nila-
when candidates also are and the candidates seem to have imbibed that culture. When candidates present their political ads, they rarely identify. I don't know if it's just me, but they rarely identify their political party, or they rarely refer to their political party
Yeah.
when
That's
they are when they present their political ad. So every rule, whether it's formal or informal, sort of conspires to for us to reach that kind of these kinds of developments over the past few days.
No, but Doc Chin, what I mean is would we see a backlash from the public, from the voter, because of these events? Kumbaga, yung voter ba, sila ba naiinis ang nangyayari, o wala lang silang pakialam din na they just go with the personalities? Will we see, kumbaga, an effect or an impact on election day with regard to how voters look at these candidates?
Yeah. For the loyal supporters of the candidates involved in these developments over the past few days, perhaps they're still going to vote for their candidates. But my concern is that this may result in a general sense of distrust for politicians. I mean, of course, a lot of people are already not trusting politicians that much, but then this will probably be resulting in that outcome. But and I don't know, maybe some people will even be turned off to vote. Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to ask the same question to the other panelists later, pero I'll bring in Com Louis. Com Louis, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Ed.
Always good to have you with us. Com, in all your years,
Louie na lang. Retired na tayo.
in all your years in Comelec, did you ever foresee something as crazy as this weekend? I mean, substitutions are old. Substitutions are not really new. I mean, they've been used before naman, although not to this degree. Kayo ba nagulantang nung nangyari sa weekend?
No, let us put it this way, no? May mga sektor ng there are people who watch election who are not actually surprised. So ako siguro I belong to that group na hindi nagulantang. You kind of expected this to happen, but not to the magnitude that it happened last weekend. No, but I think I would be more amused than really surprised about it, because malinaw naman yung sinabi ni Earl. I mean, it's true. No? We're focused on the substitution thing, but the real issue here is the strength of our political party. In fact, the substitution rule is geared towards or is fashioned under an assumption that we have a functioning political party system. Yun lang naman yun eh. And that is the reason why substitution is limited to members of political parties. But if we have no clear regulatory environment for political parties, this is what happened. And this is kind of expected. Now, siguro doon sa tanong, kung nasa COMELEC ka o kaya you're an election lawyer or you do election day in and day out, you'll not be surprised. You'll not even be irritated. You'll just wait for, let's say, in this case, November 15 to know the final list of candidates. Because November 15, at the end of the day, is still 5 months away from the time that voters get to choose. So irritation is not really there for, I think, those who know election or who are involved in election more deeply. At sa taong bayan, I would like to think siguro may irritation, 2 linggo pagkikwentuhan, but it's like, it's like talking about what was the latest episode in Ang Probinsyano. Siguro gano'n na yun. Then at the end of the day, pipili mo depending on what was the final configuration. Now, why is this irritating? Siguro, hindi lang magandang pakinggan, maraming kontrabida. Pero kung ang nag-substitute ay mga bida, baka hindi tayo mai-irritate masyado. But the point really here is that, we have a weak political party system. And I want to just stress this. In our Omnibus Election Code, 270 provisions. 3 provision lang, 3 section lang ang about regulating political party. And that's not, and those 3 sections do not even have much regulation to talk about. Definition, how to register them, period.
Pero medyo malawak yung I know we're headed in that direction, that we should be headed in that direction. A clear and clean regulatory environment for political parties is the key to all this to all these problems, not just substitution but everything else that bedevils our politics. Pero ngayon pala kasi you have so many people calling for the scrapping of the rule on substitution. Is that even possible? Kasi I mean, shouldn't I know we have a problematic political party system right now, pero at this point should politicians or candidates be allowed to substitute until a certain date voluntarily, or should that be scrapped entirely, at least for the moment?
Yeah, siguro Ed, readily we will say, sige, scrap it because that's what we experience right now. Pero tingin ko parang myopic yung view ngayon eh. Parang tiningnan mo lang yung isang portion ng legal framework of election because it's creating problem now. But the real problem, and if I may add this, is that we have an antiquated set of election laws. Imagine we're citing Section 77 of the Omnibus Election Code. Omnibus Election Code was passed in 1985. Even before the 1987 Constitution, saan ka nakakita na election law na nag-i-implement ng isang political system na pinasa after? Di ba? So, necessarily meron siyang hindi talaga, hindi aangkop sa sitwasyon ngayon. Pangalawa, you would remember that the deadline for filing of certificate of candidacy under the law, since before, is the day before the start of the campaign period. But COMELEC was given the authority to just advance it 5 months before. No? Nung late pa yung deadline, yung 1 day before the start of the campaign period, there was not much issue about this. And COMELEC did not even advance the deadline for substitution for if the reason were withdrawal. Because it was not really an issue. So what happens here, if you do piecemeal amendment of our legal framework and not revisit the interconnection of all laws on election, then tama si Dr. Jean, magkakaroon ka ng problema anytime. Talagang mangyayari yung mga problema. Maybe not substitution but something else. We're talking about premature campaigning. Ang daming issue yan. It all boils down to a set of legal framework that does not allow yung sense, yung regulating with sense. No? So siguro i-revisit natin yung election code natin and come up with one coherent election code. Well, siguro substitution is one thing that you need to look at, pero I don't think it will bring us any substantial importance. Kung yun lang ang tinignan natin, marami pang magiging problema dyan.
Yeah. Sabi mo nga, piecemeal piecemeal na, papatsi-patsi lang. You're patching up symptoms but not exactly the problem.
Exactly. And I think the problem here, tama si Earl, is our weak political party system. Why is it weak? Number one, we don't have a robust regulatory environment for political parties.
Pero I suppose at this point kasi we're going into election season already. We are already in election season, so it's a bit well, it's always too late, but it's already a bit too late to hope for an amendment to all these laws. I mean, Congress is busy with the budget. So with that in mind, wala na tayong magagawa, at least as far as what happened is concerned. There's nothing we can do to resolve these issues in the immediate term. We'll have to look at the long term talaga, the long view.
Well, baka merong mga petitions that are filed to question maybe the substitution, but because there may be some legal issues, no? But again, if you look at the legal framework that you would use to file petition and to question the process, again, base pa rin yan sa existing framework na defective, no?
Yeah.
So parang siguro lang ang gagawin mo lang may technicality na nagkamali dito, like for instance, yung issue that a substitute will only take his oath to the party that nominated the original candidate right now, no? Alam mo, siguro ang isang tingnan mo dyan, tingnan mo yung constitution ng bylaws ng party yun. Baka yung constitution ng laws ng party yun, ang nire-require niya, kailangan may 6 months, you have to pay your membership dues before you can be a party. Ito yung mga requirements na pwede mong, yung mga procedural kwa na lang Di ba? Because you have to live within that framework. Kasi yun yung framework mo. But baka pwedeng mangyari. But what I'm saying is, other than that, then I think you just have to live with the set of candidates that we have after November 15.
Pero sinong party nga amin na may violation ng law nila?
Alam mo, nasa record yan, nagsasubmit ng rules and regulation at constitution and bylaws ang mga party. What I'm saying is, parang perfunctory na lang yon. But yun ang hahanapin mong mga reason. Like, pwede ba talagang mag-join ka lang ng party after the withdrawal? Now, if withdrawal by reason of substitution by reason withdrawal is really to give privilege to members of political parties and not to independents as against independents, then hindi ba it might make more sense and perhaps the law intend the membership of the substitute to be there already at the time of the filing of certificate of candidacy? So these are legal questions that may be raised. Pero kumbaga, pangungulit na lang ito. No, you don't know how the Supreme Court will decide on this legal issue, if it will ever consider this legal issue. But again, it's still within the framework ng defective regulatory environment natin.
Yeah. Doc Jean, let me bring you back, and then I'll toss the same question to Earl. Kayo ba nagulat nung si Pangulong Digong when the president started hitting Bongbong Marcos nung weekend, and even yung kanyang anak si Sara. Pero si Bongbong muna, kasi for the past 5 years we repeatedly heard the president to be all praises for Mr. Marcos, even to a certain point. Almost saying na if I resign, I want him to take my place, even though that's not possible. And then suddenly, over the weekend, parang laban na. Awin na tayo.
Well, he probably was really mad at the fact that he was not part of the negotiations, and he really and he's, what also came out was that he really pala wanted Sara to run for president. Kasi diba, before he was saying that he did not want Sara to run for president. So so he was really very disappointed, no? So because he thought that Sara would have a better chance naman. So why would you be the vice presidential candidate of Bongbong Marcos? So I was a bit but then he's just being consistent, no, with with whoever it is that he's mad against.
Well, you might say he's being consistently inconsistent, kasi before that he was saying nga na ayaw niyang tumakbo si Sara.
Yeah.
So medyo magulo. Pero how do you think this will affect I don't know, the votes come 2022? Kasi di ba for a long time akala ng marami na yung BBM, yung Marcos and Duterte voters or supporters were virtually in the same camp. Oo, kapit-bisig sila. Parang gamitin yung kapit-bisig sa kanila eh. So, di ba? We were of that impression for 5 years na they were a monolith. They were homogeneous.
But then they're not running against each other anymore because Duterte will be running for the Senate. No, if if people vote based on personalities, then it doesn't matter to them where. I mean, they vote for Sara and then they vote for Duterte as a senator. They will just have some sort of cognitive dissonance pagka na panood nila yung mga political ad ni Bongo, where only Duterte was speaking. I mean, I have never seen a presidential political advertisement in which the candidate did not even speak at all.
Tumatango lang.
It was really weird for me.
But I suppose it appears to be magbubukas ang proxy war kasi yun nga, Bongbong Marcos is going up against Bongo, who for all intents and purposes is President Duterte in younger form. So it's a proxy war.
Yeah, it's a proxy war, but then I think pedigree would win over whether Duterte will support Sara or not. I mean, it's really the surname, the Duterte, would still matter to voters. Instead, I mean, compared to when Duterte fully endorses Bongo as we are seeing now in their ads, diba?
Earl, are you still there or are you still having breakfast? I see. There they are.
Busog na ako, Ed. Busog na ako.
I wanted to bring you in this particular part kasi you wrote a chapter in your book specifically about the past of the Marcoses and the Dutertes and how and in our text messages over the weekend how this could relate to what happened nung weekend yung biglang lumitaw yung parang galit ng Pangulong Duterte kay Marcos. Tell us about the chapter of your book Betrayal and how it could relate to what's happening now.
Kasi ang problem talaga sa tingin ko ngayon ay dates back or goes back doon sa hinanakit ng Duterte family kay Marcos Senior dahil noong 1967 nung tumakbo si Vicente Duterte, the father of Digong, for congressman ng Davao, parang ang Nationalista Party then led by Ferdinand Marcos Sr. ay iba ang piniling official candidate. Isang councilor ng Davao City, si Artemio Loyola. No? At ito yung pinaglaban. Ito yung naging kalaban ni Vicente Duterte. At parang kinuman ng mga NP leadership sa national na all-out support doon kay Loyola, hindi kay Vicente Duterte. At that time, bago siya mag-file ng certificate of candidacy niya, cabinet member si Vicente Duterte ni Marcos. And yet, ang sinuportahan ng NP leadership led by Marcos ay hindi siya. So, the family felt betrayed. No? At kinasama ito ng loob ni Vicente na 2 months after, nung na-uncover niya ang lahat na mga ginawa ng NP sa kanya, sumama ang loob niya at gaya ng FPJ, no? Namatay siya, cardiac arrest 2 months after the elections. Parang ganun. Sa tingin ko, nag-i-impact din yan kay nag-impact ng malaki yon kay Suling, nanay ni Digong, at sa tingin ko nag-impact yon hanggang ngayon sa anak na si Digong. So, bakit kaya sinasabi ni Digong, sumusuporta ako sa mga Marcoses, ipapalibing ko si Marcos sa libingan ng mga bayani. Alam mo, isang interesting meeting ang nangyari before, this was in early 2016, no? Before the campaign period, official campaign period, nag-meeting yung mga supporters ni Duterte sa Linden Suites. No? Ang pinag-usapan nila, i-honor ba nila ang invitation ni Aimee na dumalaw si Digong mangampanya doon sa Ilocos. Nahati yung nag-participate doon. Ang mga Dominguez, si Sani at si Paul Dominguez were there, no? Tapos si Coco nandoon. Ito yung mga anti-Marcos wing ng Duterte campaign in 2016. No, ayaw nila dahil mga anti-Marcos sila. Pero itong mga sina Esperon, sina Calida, talagang pinupush nila na ituloy. Ang nangyari kasi niyan, months before, nag-advance, kinausap na nila itong mga regional political leaders. So pinuntahan ni Butch Ramirez. Siya yung sports commissioner ngayon, di ba? Ni Butch Ramirez, si Aimee sa Ilocos. Ang sagot ni Aimee sa kanya, hindi kami pwedeng sumuporta kay Duterte dahil susuporta kami kay Binay. Si Binay at the time was top sa surveys. No? Pero nung dumating ang pagpasok ng campaign period, tumataas ang figures ni Duterte at marereflect mo yun eh. Opportunistic naman talaga yung politicians natin. Doon sila nag-show ng support kay Duterte, in-invite nila. Anyway, ang nag-resolve ng impasse na ito, nag-break ng impasse na to, ay si June Evasco. Sabi ni June, pagdating niya sa meeting, ano ba yung gusto natin? Boto, di ba? Hindi yung pro-Marcos ka o anti-Marcos. Makakadagdag ba ng boto kay Digong ang sila Aimee? Siyempre, ang sagot dyan, oo, makakadagdag. Kaya sabi niya, okay, puntahan natin. Walang nakaimik. Ang naging next discussion nila, papayag ba tayo na bumisita sa mausoleum si Digong? Dahil sa mga anti-Marcos dyan, ang pagbisita mo ay parang nagpipay homage ka sa isang diktador.
Yeah.
No? Again, sabi ni June, alam mo, pag inimbita ka sa isang party, tapos ang bahay ng host ay maganda, tapos sasabihin ng host na gusto mo makita ang mga kwarto ko, ang mga kitchen ko, etc. So itutur ka sa bahay. Tatanggi ka ba o hindi? Dahil bastos yun pag tumanggi ka. So pag in-invite ka ni Aimee, pumunta sa mausoleum, dapat hindi ka tumanggi. So yun yung resolution dyan. Totoo, nag-deliver ang mga Marcoses ng votes for Duterte sa 2016, pero ang narinig ko, hindi naman malaki yung contribution talaga, financially nila. Bakit sinasabi ni Digong na malaking utang na loob niya sa mga Marcoses? Sa tingin ko, ano lang yun pulling the leg. Yung parang ganun siya nanluloko. Sasabihin niya kay FBR, ikaw ang mentor ko. Sa totoo lang, wala naman siya talagang iniisip na mentor. Ganun yun siya ikaw, malaki kang supporter. Ganun siya. At saka yung mga pagrarant niya last weekend, sa tingin ko, consistent yun sa personality niya. No? Na pag na-hurt siya dahil dapat siya, presidente siya dapat siya ang unang nakakarinig sa lahat ng plano. And yet, sarili niyang anak, plano ng sarili niyang anak ay hindi niya nalaman. Kaya very insulting. Slap in the face talaga yon sa kanya. So ganun ang reaction niya. Later, nahimasmasan niya kung kakalabanin niya yung anak niya sa same position ng vice, pangit tignan. At saka tatay pa rin yun, okay, suportahan kita, magiging president ka. So nag-opt siya, hindi pagiging mayor dahil it will indicate na nag-give in siya doon sa demand ng anak niya, no? Kundi magiging senador siya. Parang ganun yung tingin ko sa nangyari or ginawa ni Digong. So, ayaw niya suportahan si Marcos dahil masakit pa rin hanggang ngayon. Father's boy ito si parang idol niya talaga sa politika, yung tatay niya. Namatay dahil sa betrayal ni Marcos at saka ni Landring Almendras, yung dating senador, yung parang sweet revenge ito. Okay, I'll have my day. Magre-revenge ako and this will be very sweet. Parang ganyan. Kaya pinafile niya sa tingin ko si Bongo ng for president ng candidacy.
Yun nga early, we kind of figured, I think all of us kind of figured na nahimasmasan yung Pangulo nung matapos niya maglabas ng sama ng loob nung weekend kasi Monday biglang for senator na lang. And for a while we were thinking na magkakaroon ng showdown between father and daughter, which would not look good. And I suppose as a patriarch and as tatay nga, hindi naman niya talaga pupuntahan yun kung sakali. But two things that struck me. Number one, it took a former rebel NPA na si Jun Ebasco to bring ano sa di ba? He's open about it. To bring the Marcos group into the Duterte fold twice, di ba? And I think that I suppose it's a bit of irony there. And number two, it does turn out to be a marriage of convenience more than a marriage of love and devotion. That was the message that we kind of got over the last 5 years. Na parang mahal na mahal niya yung Marcos family, but it turns out it was more a marriage of convenience than anything. Am I getting this right?
Yes. Yun yung tingin ko. Alam mo, personality ni Digong, alam naman natin lahat na may yun, di ba? Narcissism talaga. Narcissistic naman talaga, personality disorder si Digong. Siyempre, it's all about him. No, it's about control. It's about him. No, so he controls, he manipulates, and for him. Ganon yung disorder na yan. Nasa tingin ko, sa nangyayari, he was not able to control the events. Siyempre, sasabog ka talaga. Pero later, may incident ka dyan sa Davao one time. Papunta silang Samal, naka-speedboat sila. Yung dapat paparkingan niyang speedboat, lugar ng speedboat, ay may nakaparking na. May nakadock na. Bumulot siya ng baril at binaril-baril niya. Pang! Later, it turned out, hindi ko na lang banggitin sino yon, pero tao na mas malakas pa sa kanya.
Oh.
Ganon. Tapos nahimasmasan siya after niyan. Ganon yung mga mga nangyayari sa Davao. Reflective yon ng personality disorder na yun.
Okay. Ibang level yun. Kami kasi parking lang ng kotse, iniisip namin problema eh. Pero anyway po, yung mga narinig yung kataga, galing kay Earl pa rin yun. Wala akong kinalaman doon.
Open naman yun? Open talks yun open stories yun. Open secret stories yun doon sa Davao. Anyway.
Okay. Earl, just tell us, I know you have to catch a flight.
Mag-ano na nga sana ako sa chat sa iyo eh. Kailangan na namin mag-check-in.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye, Luigi.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Bye, Earl.
Yes,
Thank
you.
Bye-bye.
I'll invite you next time. Yeah.
Daming chismis, di ba?
Thank you.
Doc Jean, Kom Louie, we earlier we were talking about the need to undertake reforms. The big picture, kumbaga, substitution, not as a problem per se, but only as a symptom of a problem. Pero we always keep coming back to that problem na the need to reform the political party system. It's such a huge issue that apparently nobody wants to touch. I mean, the first time I heard about political party reform moves was panahon pa ni Gloria. 2004, 2007, si Kom Louie pang isa one of those resource persons and it never takes off. It never seems to take off precisely, I suppose, because it's like the anti-dynasty bill. It runs against the interests of those who need to vote on it. How do we move forward? Sorry, medyo broad, diba? Pero we keep talking about these things, the need to reform. How can we push it forward when the people we rely on to push that reform like it the way it is?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. There's an academic who said that it's really hard to push reforms when the politicians are the object and subject of reforms because there's really not going to happen. No? And you know, the anti-political dynasty bill was first, if I'm not mistaken, was first filed right after EDSA, 8
So,
Congress.
yeah.
8 Congress. It never materialized. No? The political party reform law was nearly approved at the Senate level. Na-approve na siya sa House, but then one person vehemently uh, lobbied against it. So it was never passed.
That was Jimmy's time, no? Parang Jimmy's
Yeah,
time eh.
yeah. There's also the fact that in the political party reform bill, there's this provision that says that political parties will be given state subsidies,
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
and that's a contentious issue because people might not like that. So usually dun nagkakaroon ng ano no ng what you call this ng division even among legislators themselves. Secondly, there's also the issue of campaign finance reform, which should be a part of political party development law. So again, that's a contentious issue. I very much also welcome the the review of the omnibus election code, but it's just that it's very difficult for Congress to focus on omnibus laws
Yeah.
because it's
It's so true.
you need discipline, you need focus, and you know, I don't remember the time when Congress actually passed a law that is omnibus in magnitude, no? So parang ang tagal-tagal na, parang local government code pa yata yung huli. So every time na may code, yung civil service code, lahat yun laging I mean, hindi talaga nakakapasa because it needs a lot of committee work, sustained committee work, and also yung ano nga no na focus. So yeah, because I think well at the end of the day, parang this is a blessing in disguise because parang people are sort of coalescing under the uh, under the they're trying to see now the benefit of reforming our political parties more than ever. So yun yung maganda. Parang
Yeah.
merong what you call this there's
Outrage.
a call, no, and there's growing awareness among people. So I think it's about time. I mean, pwede naman without actually changing the constitution. Let us see where we can do some reforms without that drastic a move as changing the constitution, because we know that is again a polarizing issue. But if ever this should be done, it should be done at the first tier of the next administration. Because if there's going to be an election again, then that's going to be delayed again because the stakes will be too high if the election is nearing.
Pero well, let me bring in Com Louie. Pero sir, di ba we have elections every 3 years. So kahit paano sasagasa
I know.
sasagasa yung bill. Whatever bill we bring in, your congressman who after getting elected now needs to think about the next election 3 years from now will have to consider will this benefit me in my re-election 3 years from now or will it not? So we're stuck with the problem again. I'm moving forward. How do we go about making all these amendments that may not necessarily be in favor of those who vote on them, whether it's political dynasty bill, whether it's political party reform, whether it's hindi substitutions, whether it's yung turncoatism and all these other nuances in political party reform. How can we possibly go? Kasi nga we've been talking about this for in effect 3 decades. Eh baka tayo nag-uusap. Kung Louie, ikaw na, what do you think? Baka tayo nag-uusap.
Siguro there has to be a demand from the bottom, no? That
Yeah.
we have got to change our politics. So dapat meron kang talagang advocate both from the civil society and the political class itself, no? Now let me give you an example. Well, before I joined COMELEC in 2013 as a commissioner, my first job out of law school was actually COMELEC between 1992 and 95. And during that time, my boss then was Chairman Christian Munsod. In 1993, we came up with a proposed election code to change the 1985 Omnibus Election Code. And among the proposal was to remove withdrawal as a ground for substitution. That was in 1993 already. And there are a lot of other proposals, some of which became law because I think Congress at that time thought that it was best to pass reforms on piecemeal basis rather than, adopt a whole new code altogether. So the idea of that code was that it is shorter, it's flexible, so that COMELEC can adapt to the times, and it will also give a clear parameter what COMELEC can do in terms of election management. But let me give you another example. You're talking about the political party law development bill, no? That actually was first proposed in 2003 and 2004, and then came out of a conference, an all-party conference organized by civil society in 2002. That was in Subic. I was a participant of that together with some other groups. And there was a consensus among all political parties. And you're talking about NP, LDP, Lakas, and everyone. And what got them into agreeing to some kind of a consensus on a political party law was actually campaign finance. If they realize that they do not have to spend so much, and if campaign finance is properly regulated, then baka patas. And because everyone was saying, napipilitan lang naman ako gumastos. Kasi gumagastos yung kalaban, bumibili ako ng boka. There was some kind of consensus. So if there's a good regulatory environment, campaign finance, which necessarily must be put into the framework of political party development. So yun. That was the bill. It was the Venecia-Angara bill at that time. But also the environment at that time was that, I think President Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo promised not to run anymore in the 2004 elections. So everybody was talking about reform. But I think things have changed when she suddenly decided to run for the 2004 election at nakalimutan na yung political party development. 2007, 2010, 2010, wala nang nangyari.
Yeah. That's the effect of that. There you see the effect of the boss chief, the person on top, making controversial decisions that impact everything downstairs, especially in politics. Ito rin, I suppose yung sumunod din kasi dito yung Hello Garcia tsaka yung I am sorry eh. So that threw a monkey wrench into all I suppose all good ideas about reforming the political party system. Pero Kung Louie, that's 17 years ago. Again, we go back to that. What are we doing wrong? What haven't we tried to move this forward? Because in the end, that's the objective. Moving it forward past Congress. hindi na true Congress past Congress.
Ganito Ed, maraming reforma nung panahon ni President Aquino, yung first Aquino, no? Now, nung 2003, everyone was in the reform frame because the perception then was that you have a political leadership who will push for or support reform. And yung parang bring the political yung put political power to pushing for reform, no? So siguro ang tingin ko diyan at ang problema lang, we were looking at this between 2010 and 2016, but I think that administration at that time did not see political reform as something urgent, no? Siguro anti-corruption, anti-poverty, failing to see that you can have the best anti-poverty or good economic policies, but if you have people who cannot implement good policies because of poor political system, hindi rin mangyayari. So I think the best way, una siguro, is to elect someone who can really push, who is a reformist in perspective and would think of, putting his political capital on political reforms and electoral reforms. So yun siguro yung maganda, and then masustain. At tama si Dr. Jean, I think all efforts should be geared towards doing it in the first half of the presidential term. Kasi hindi na yan mangyayari pag sa second half.
Doc Jean, nabanggit ko kanina eh. Let me try to push this forward. You think the events of the past few days or the weekend or the past few weeks, let's broaden it a bit, the past few weeks would create enough of an outcry, enough of a snowball effect for people to want to push their elected leaders into amending all these problematic provisions?
Yeah, and I think, yes, and I think we're also now hearing politicians themselves supporting the effort to amend the substitution rule. There are even bills filed already in the House, I think. No, so we need to build that constituency moving forward to the next administration. There are lots of civil society groups whose advocacies are on political and electoral reforms. I'm sure they'd be joining this constituency. The media would very much be welcome to join this constituency. So yeah, let's try. I think we've built. I mean, the momentum has been built with what has happened the past few weeks.
So we're seeing something good out of this pala.
Yeah.
Talaga, half empty, half full. I think we have questions from the floor.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm monopolizing.
Ayan.
Sorry.
Kaya nga, tumitindi yung usapin.
Sorry.
No? Ito na yung no holds bar na talaga. Okay, questions from our media friend. Number 1, kanina nabanggit yung inis factor. Paano kaya magandang palawakin ang inis na ito over travesty of our electoral laws sa mas maraming Pilipino? And patagalin ang pagkainis enough to translate into votes to make sure maayos naman kahit papano ang sistema. Question mark po yun. Number 2, ano po kayang plot twist ang pwedeng mangyari at dapat maghandaan in the next few days or weeks kahit tapos na ang substitution? Ayun po. Sino po ang pwedeng mag-umpisa? Hahatiin ba niya?
Ang dami ko kasing tanong.
Oo nga, dalawa nga ito eh. From ano.
Isa muna. Ano yung ano? Ano gusto mo na yun?
Yung inis factor na paano daw yung papalawigin para mag-translate into votes, no? O kung sino man yung boboto, no? Yun. Pwede ba daw ito mangyari? Paano daw ito translate? Sir Louis?
Hindi, siguro 'di ba political communications 'yon, no? Paano mo Paano mo sasabihin o gagawing siguro to be direct, paano mo gagawing gut issue? Yung mga nangyari at yung kainisan na 'yon at paano siya makakaapekto sa mga boboto directly. Medyo mahirap but siguro yun yung pwede tayo matulungan ng media. At yung communications people.
Sir Earl, short of saying itong inis na to, outrage ba? I'm not putting the words into the mouth of the yung nagtatanong, pero the outrage, yung ganun sa inis, yung outrage mo sa mga outrage ng mga tao sa mga nangyayari ngayon, pang-aabuso.
Ako ba yun?
Kayo po, oo.
Well, tingnan natin, no? Sa tingin ko kasi matagal pa rin yung election, no? May panahon pa talagang ma-translate itong inis na to or outrage. Pero ako gusto kong pag-aralan kung talagang may outrage beyond those who are really just watching or are interested in watching the events. Palagay ko yung mga iba parang nanonood lang ng telenovela. So kahit horror movie, naaaliw ka naman, di ba?
Kay Ma'am Jean, Ito yung second question, Ma'am G. Ano po kayang plot twist ang pwedeng mangyari at dapat maghandaan in the next few days or weeks kahit tapos na ang substitution?
Yung plot twist, nako, ang hirap i-predict, tsaka parang baka hindi na kayanin ng mga tao pag meron pa ulit plot twist, di ba? Parang,
Oo.
I don't know, probably some people may not. Pwede pa bang pwede pa bang ayaw ko na, hindi ko natutuloy yung kandidatura ko. Hindi na pwede, no? Well, tapos gusto ko lang dagdagan yung yung the other
Question kanina.
on the inis factor.
Inis.
Yeah, yun nga, parang meron ng sort of constituency na bibuild, no, over the fact that ganito nga yung nangyari sa substitution rule. Yes, it remains to be seen whether this would move forward until the elections. But yeah, tama yung sinabi ni Sir Tito Gian, no, na gawin siyang gut issue. I think the best way to make this a gut issue is that may connection to dun sa policy making natin eh. You know, yung gulo ng politika, yung wala tayong matinong political parties, transcends elections. That's why when the president assumes office, kailangan niyang i-consolidate yung kanyang kasi minority president siya eh, no? Dahil minority president siya, kailangan niya ng mga kakampi to pursue his legislative agenda. And then what happens is that there are going to be spoils so that everybody would be happy. Who's going to be the Senate President, who's going to be the Speaker of the House, and all the other people who will be by his or by her side. So what will happen is that maraming informal perks ang presidency, no, aside from spoils, aside from appointments that can be provided to these politicians para maging part siya ng coalition ng president or lumipat siya ng party. That's one. Because political parties do not matter at all in policy making, what happens is that it takes such a long time for reforms to be pursued and to be approved. Because isa lang ang may ayaw, madaling madiskarel, no? Because hindi nasasala within political parties yung mga reform. So I guess that's the best way to make it a gut issue.
Maganda tong comment dito, Ed, ano? Sabi ni Joyce ng Manila Standard, ang PPA Seminar Director.
Yeah.
Pwede pa substitution until midday of election day, pero only if candidate dies or is disqualified. Both not very options.
Actually, Bok, maganda i-qualify din yan eh. The petition against Bongbong Marcos now is for cancellation. It is not for substitution. So, Sir Louis, tell me if I'm getting this right. Kasi kayo abogado eh. Kayo dating Comelec eh. So, if it's for cancellation and kung makancel siya, walang option for substitution.
Wala
Pero
po.
I think, yes, tama sir. No? Pero sir, I think today there's another group filing a petition for disqualification naman. So kung yung disqualification case yung umusad, kung yun ang umusad, yun ang pwedeng ma-substitute kung sakaling pumasa yun. Kasi tama sir, pag disqualification, yun, may substitution.
Well, kung minsan interchangeable ito, no? Pag pwede mong ipasok sa issue ng eligibility, for instance, kung ang ground ng substitution is that, you would not have qualified anyway at the time of the filing of certificate of candidacy, then you can make out a case for cancellation. Kasi pag cancellation, parang walang kandidato. At if there's no candidate, there's no one to substitute. So yun yung rule. So, but let's say when the disqualification or the fact that constitutes the disqualifying act happened after the filing of certificate of candidacy, then it will not affect the validity of the certificate of candidacy. Hindi tama yung ika-cancel mo yon. So, kandidato pa rin. Yun yung disqualification that can be substituted. I just don't know what the basis, what the grounds are in the petition that you said was filed.
In the petition, I think they're filing it today. I think they're going to go with the same grounds eh. Yung violation ng National Internal Revenue Code, whether it's moral turpitude or whether automatic disqualification na siya under the NIRC Article 354, if I remember the number right. Parang ganoon eh. Pero Ariel, meron ka pa? Kasi meron ako sisingin na tanong.
Sige, ikaw muna. Back to you, Ed.
Okay.
Oo.
Medyo malisyoso lang ng konti. Hindi naman malisyoso. Malaro lang, malaro. I'm wondering lang kung anong mangyayari. What would happen if umusad yung if umusad yung cancellation case against Bongbong Marcos, if it moves forward in both COMELEC and Supreme Court, who takes over? Kung two scenarios. Kung makancel siya bago mag-eleksyon at kung makancel siya pagkatapos ng eleksyon. Ayun.
Okay.
Kung makancel siya bago mag-eleksyon at or pagkatapos ng eleksyon.
Okay, sa sistema kasi natin ngayon ang importante 'yan kung naka-imprenta na yung pangalan sa balota. No, kasi pag nasa balota na 'yan, merong magsi-shade ng pangalan kahit na na-cancel o na. Now, ang effect ng cancellation legally is that there was no candidate. And therefore, all votes credited or counted by, let's say, what we have now is a machine, no? Will be declared stray.
Tapon.
O, tapon yon. So, ang first place, kung sakaling naging first place, hindi na siya yung first place. Ang magiging first place ngayon will be the one who got the most number of votes without his votes nung nag-disqualified.
Okay.
So, hindi yung vice, yung candidate for vice.
Okay, that's clear. That's before. That's if that happens before election, sir, before proclamation. Which one is it?
Basta cancellation yan even before or after. Basta may ang issue lang naman doon sa before or after yung yung matatanggal mo pa ba yung pangalan niya from the ballot, because if it's printed there, then it would have to be the possibilities that there will be people who would vote, who would tick the oval in a way. By way of saying. So ang basta ang rule diyan pag cancellation ang certificate of candidacy, walang kandidato, stray yan. Whether the decision happened before or after.
Yes, sir. Pero sir, I was wondering if it happened, if the cancellation, again, ifs to, these are scenarios. If a cancellation happens after, for example, proclamation, hindi yung na-proclaim ng vice ang uupo or yung number 2 pa rin sa presidential election.
So, ang mangyayari diyan kasi siguro sabi mo yung start ng term of office, no?
Yes, sir.
Ang mangyayari diyan, you will have a president who would let's say fail to qualify. No? So probably pag na-proclaim yung vice president, baka maging presidente yung vice president pag nag-fail mag-qualify. But that will only happen kung walang ibang kandidato. Kasi kung may ibang kandidato, bibilangin mo pa rin yung boto nung mga ibang kandidato for president. So hindi mangyayari na yung vice president ang uupo. Because canceling the candidacy means that there was no that candidate whose certificate of candidacy was canceled was never candidate at all. Yeah. But there are other candidates whose votes you must count.
Yeah.
Di ba?
Agree.
So kahit isa lang yung boto nung pangalawa, baka siya yung highest number of makakuha ng highest number of votes. So sa'yo magiging presidente. The vice president will remain a vice president.
Yes, sir. Sir, that's for cancellation. Baguhin natin ng konti yung formula. What if it's disqualification? How does it change?
Pag disqualification, let's say pag na-disqualify, sige, ina-analyze ko muna.
Before and after then. Same scenarios, before and after.
Pag disqualification, at binoto siya, hindi rin bibilangin No, kasi disqualified siya. No, and pag hindi siya binilang, may rule kasi dati na yung second place hindi siya magiging first place. Kasi hindi siya yung binoto. So wala kang inelect, no? But let me review this, no? pag presidente kasi parang parang hindi ko ini-imagine na mangyari. But let me study this.
Oo. And
Oo.
may tanong din ako. May tanong din ako. Ang disqualification ba, sir, is equal to pagiging nuisance candidate?
Iba yung nuisance candidate. Yung nuisance candidacy kasi parang, may ground yan. Yung disqualified ka because of what you did and because of your circumstance, no?
Okay.
It's not because you have no intention to really run or not because you have ano ba yun? You want
kakulangan.
the election
Mockery
and disrepute, or because you want to confuse voters because of by reason of similarity of surnames. No? So yun lang yung ground for nuisance.
Okay.
Kumbaga buwisit ka lang, parang ganon.
Nambibwisit lang.
Ang bibwisit ka. Kaya maka-cancel. The effect of nuisance candidacy under the law is for the certificate of candidacy to be cancelled.
Yeah. Ed.
Diba? Yung mga nuancing sorry, we were playing around with the scenarios Ma'am Jean,
pero maganda pag-aralan ko siguro. Hindi ko naisip agad. Absent ata ako nung
Sabi ni Joyce, Ed, pag disqualification before election day, pwede palitan ba sa same surname? Which is nabanggit na kanina early on. Pag after ang manggulo, ang magulo. Pag after ang magulo. Pag after na yung magulo, oo.
Ma'am Jean, let me bring in again. I have a question specific to the Duterte Marcos. Well, we used to think of it as monolithic, na, di ba? How do you see this? All these gyrations figuring out on election day. I mean, now medyo nagugulan tayo, and it's still five months from election day. Will it matter to supporters of BBM and Duterte on election day itself, or nakalimutan na to as part of one exciting scene lang sa telenovela ng Pilipinas?
I guess it depends if President Duterte will actually say something against the Marcoses, no, in the run-up to election day.
Baka mamaya.
Depends on whether in campaigning, while campaigning, he will continue to say things against Bongbong and his family. Then it will be an election issue. But in that case, he will be helping the other candidates.
Yeah.
Ayun nga eh. Baka the opponents of the Marcoses and the Dutertes are banking on that so that they could get the votes that were due to those two camps. Is that likely? Is that possible? I mean, hindi ba ganun kalinyado na ngayon yung mga tao na parang you're so intensely pro or anti this personality na tatawid ka ba talaga?
Well, perhaps for the undecided voters that would matter. But for people who are already bent on voting a specific candidate, then it wouldn't matter at all. But then there's also the perception that Duterte keeps on saying things that he does not mean. So we also don't know how that will play out on the public, di ba?
Kaya nga, Ma'am G, we should not be surprised pag gano'n yung narrative. Binanggit nyo kanina, all praises, hitting Marcos, BBM, Marcos Jr. Tapos pagdating ng campaign, parang baka all praises naman or mawala naman yung ganong
yun nga eh.
Di ba?
Oo.
But do people see that? Do people see the inconsistencies or the changing narratives from these politicians, or did they just accept them because they like the politician? Because, for example, the president has not exactly been consistent in the last 5 years.
Yes, exactly.
He's made astounding turnarounds both in policy and in attitudes, and I don't know. People mind. Do they? What do you think, ma'am? Do they?
My sense is that, diba, his ratings are going down. Maybe that people have had enough. Let's see. But then I guess the turning point was when they talked about both father and daughter talked about running. When Duterte was trying to run for vice president, and then
Yeah.
there's talk that Sara will run also as president. Diba? The survey after that incident, or the survey taken within that period, parang bumaba yung ano nila, and also the electoral surveys on Sara and Duterte showed numbers that their voters parang changed their mind. So let's see, mukhang may ganun akong nakikita eh.
Oo. Ed, merong question from our friend sa Hans Salo Foundation. How would you suggest cases of admitted placeholders be handled?
Yeah.
Yung mga aminado. Yung mga proud pa to say that we are there on behalf of ano.
Yeah. Paano daw?
Just for context, they admit to being placeholders, but eventually they say that they're not. Parang himasmasan din sila eh. So binabawi din nila eh. I mean, you've seen that with Bato, you've also seen that with the Lakas placeholders. Nung una, sabi ni Pichay, placeholder sila. Tapos eventually sabi ni Pichay, hindi pala, seryoso kami. Pero how do we, Louis, ano? Tingin mo dito.
Without reference to any specific case, nuisance.
Okay.
Nuisance.
Okay.
They're nuisance.
Pero Louis, let me go back to that. Who decides on who is a nuisance candidate? Is it just the law department, or is it something tossed to the unbank?
It is a full-fledged exercise of quasi-judicial power of COMELEC. There was to be a deliberation on that.
Pero does the unbank really go through all the names, or it's just ministerial on the part of the unbank to approve the law department?
No, let us put it this way. COMELEC has no vetting power. Okay, it can only accept certificate of candidacy. That is clear under the law. It cannot even, say whether one is qualified or not, unless it is obvious on the face of the certificate of candidacy, or if one files a petition to cancel the certificate of candidacy. Now, itong nakikita natin sa nuisance candidacy, nag-umpisa lang ito, I think way back in 1992, when operationally magiging problematic yung having all the names listed in the election returns nung filling the blanks pa yung balota. But now, the problem will be doubled kasi yun nga, you have to print all the names under the chosen system of COMELEC. And you know what? There are 120, I think more than 100 presidential candidates doing that. So it's an operational issue. And to me, I think this was one of the most difficult part of my being a commissioner, having to decide nuisance candidacy motu proprio. Ang hirap eh, kasi right to stand for election is a basic right. But what comforts me is that it's also my duty to make voters less confused when they vote. Parang gano'n na lang. I mean, by way of justifying it, of course I cannot put that in my in my decision, but it has to be among those that are found in Section 69. So, ayun, kaya nagkaroon ng motu proprio, and until the Supreme Court said that COMELEC can actually do that. So, yun, na-justify. So, yun lang yung origin na yun. But the default and the general rule is COMELEC does not vet and cannot vet certificates of candidacies.
It is a heavy job kasi at present we have 97 people who filed their COCs for the presidency. So
yes, it's going to be difficult, especially so that the Supreme Court came up with a decision, I think 2019, Marquez versus COMELEC, which says that COMELEC cannot use yung lack of ability to wage a nationwide campaign as a ground to declare a candidate a nuisance. So it's going to be very challenging for COMELEC to be trimming down the list again.
Especially, I suppose, with the big parties. Kasi established parties na sila. So makikipag-away talaga yung mga yan. Pero nga yung ito yung mga big parties yung may mga placeholders.
Well, iba naman yon. Usually walang motu proprio petition kung placeholder kasi alam mong sinadya yan with political parties. And COMELEC usually does not initiate motu proprio petition pag nominated by political party because it necessarily may network siya. There's a group that, well, at least theoretically, that would campaign for that candidate.
Yeah. And it's almost 10:40. It's still interesting discussion going on here. Should we wrap it up, or because I cannot see any more questions in the chat room and in the live FB streaming. Yeah.
I don't see any more questions here. I suppose
unless you have
let's have final words from our
Sure.
from our remaining two guests before we call it a morning. Ladies first, let's start with Doc Jean. Doc Jean Franco, ano yung, for our viewers and anybody who will be watching this in the future, what do we want to leave to them in terms of a message that they should hold on to?
Well, I guess for many years we always look to the electorate as quote unquote bobotante or needing voter education, but the events over the past few weeks tell us that it is also time to reform our political parties, to rein in politicians who do not value our electoral processes. And I'm very hopeful that the constituency is already building towards that pursuit. No, my other comment is also that we must also, along with these reforms, we must also, I think it's about time to strengthen the COMELEC because the COMELEC should have a bigger budget, should have more competent people. I know that during elections, ang sarap, lagi tayong naiinis sa COMELEC, but there are honest and hardworking people in COMELEC. Can you imagine implementing a synchronized nationwide elections? In other countries, they don't do that, no? In other countries, local yung may local electoral commission, di ba? So it's really a very big job for which the COMELEC should be given a better budget, bigger set of people, no? And that every election should always give us hope for what is in store in the future. But then let us also hope that this time, in the 2022 elections, we will have an election that will give us hopefully a brighter future and a better constituency to build our political system.
Yeah.
So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, ang ganda. But let me add to that na lang. Let's not hope that people do a better job in the elections. Let's hope we do a better
We do a
job.
better
job.
All of us.
Let's not hope on other people. Let's hope.
Yeah.
Let's commit ourselves to doing a better job. Okay, Kong Louie.
Yeah, I just think that we should, especially media, perhaps help promote the need for political reforms. Make it a more important topic, make it a gut issue. It's not as easy as we would want it to be, but that's the challenge perhaps, because we might have the best policies on economics and on trade, perhaps on good government, but if we want to remain democracy and but do not have a good way of choosing our people, then walang kwenta yung mga magagandang batas. That's one. And siguro I can say at this point that developing our political party, strengthening our political party is a primary electoral reform. No, yan siguro yung unahin nating tingnan how difficult it may be, and it's basically just changing directing the incentive system that we have in politics and to make it more programmatic rather than personality based. So parang re-engineering the incentive system. So ganun siguro yung kwan. And lastly, yung sa institution ng COMELEC, siguro yes, strengthen it, pero dapat it is embraced within the larger regulatory framework in election. So we have to really revisit the election code, look at it as a whole. COMELEC, I think, or at least when I was there, meron siyang dinidevelop na proposed election code para i-update at pa-modernize yung process. I hope it will get noticed. And siguro in relation to that, siguro isama natin sa pagpili kung sino yung iboboto natin this coming election, yung may political reform agenda. Siguro sa debate, magtanong tayo ng political reform questions and ask our kwan to commit. I'm sure many of them do not even see this as problem, no? And
Sino kayo
lastly,
makakasagot yan, Com? Sino kayo makakasagot yan?
exactly, intellectually or kwan, no? Baka mahirap nga, but it's a way of maybe siguro ganito, hindi voters education, educating our political candidates siguro is also necessary, no? Na hindi lang siguro anong tawag niyo, patronage ang politics natin. We have to educate our politicians to what the people need. So, and lastly, gusto ko lang imbitahan ng iba na kwento ni Dr. Jean yung sa COMELEC. There will be 3 vacancies in COMELEC in February 2, 2022. 3 months and 1 week before the 2022 election. So ang mangyayari dyan, yung nagplano at naghanda ng eleksyon na chairperson, si Commissioner Guanzon and Commissioner Ko will no longer be there February 2. So crucial yung magiging appointment sa COMELEC dahil alam niyo naman COVID, ang daming mga risk, ang daming mga hindi natin ma-foresee. Bukod pa tong hindi natin ma-foresee na sinasabi natin dito sa takbo ng politika, sa process din. Hindi natin alam kung ano mangyayari. Pwedeng man-made, pwedeng natural. So you need COMELEC who can decide independently, yung hindi and a COMELEC that would decide competently.
Okay, maganda yung kay Com Louie. Let's push political reform as an election issue in especially in the debates, di ba? Let's pitch that in. Otherwise kasi it'll be glossed over by by the candidates.
So, all right, Ed.
Okay.
Okay. Wrap it up. So that's a wrap actually. Ang dami pang pwedeng pag-usapan but we have so not the time in the world, pero pwede pa pag-usapan next time po, and we hope to invite you again. Ma'am Jean, Sir Louie, next time. Maraming salamat po sa inyo. And by the way, our admin officer will get in touch with you. We are going to get the numbers from Ed, but at this point, let me just have Carol Linely for some quick reminders. Carol of Seidel Foundation, maraming salamat ulit. And Ed, moderator natin, maraming salamat for effectively handling.
Thank you to our guests. Nakikikwento na naman ako.
Yeah, oo. Carol?
Yes, Ariel. Thank you. Well, I'm Caroline Lee, Seidel Foundation, program coordinator, and I'm just here to remind you to please, of course, thanks to all our resource persons, and of course to our very able moderator, Sir Ed, and to remind everyone to please respond to our online survey, the link will be posted in the chat box. Please give us your feedback so that we know how we can improve future activities and have more of these in the future. Thank you all very much.
Maraming salamat po sa inyo lahat. Enjoy your lunch.
Salamat.
And
Dr. Jean and Commissioner Louie.
Thank you.
At sa lahat po yung nasa meeting room at saka nanood po sa atin sa FB live streaming. Thanks everyone. And later at 1 p.m. isa na namang umaatikabong balitaktakan at 1 p.m. Philippines at the crossroads. What lies ahead after the May 22 elections with some of our renowned political analysts in the country and academic experts as well. So please join us later. You can see the link, the Zoom link in my FB post. Maraming salamat po sa inyo lahat. Bye-bye.